Hello everyone, let's begin. Tuning into the information that's available for us today. There's a slow moving current that's right here. Tuning 100%. Translation 100%. Wonderful. So the first thing that I notice is the current. It's the movement of this position. It's called a position. Position seems to be relevant. Position implying posture. No. Position implying placement. Placement something. Placement. A reference for me specifically. So placement to do with something that I've studied before. Let's say placement. I'm seeing the 5 elements of traditional Chinese medicine. Something about placement within the 5 elements. The circular chart that you typically see where there's the 5 circles representative of each element. But flowing sensation here makes me think water, so something to do with the element of water. Water typically associated with creativity. I hear that in through the left ear. Left ear is relevant. Left ear is relevant to do with feminine energy. Feminine energy, my capacity to magnetize things towards me, has nothing to do with gender. Every human being alive has feminine and masculine energies. These are just aspects of human consciousness. They work together to create the reality that you see around you. You magnetize things towards you, feminine energy, and then you naturally act upon those things, masculine energy. Together these things move in order to create what you see around you. I'm holding something here. A pearl. So we have water-based themes today, it seems like. Seeing a shine on the pearl, and there's a reflection within the shine on the pearl. A seagull flying overhead towards the left, so left is relevant in a separate way now. Let's talk about the past, likely. Yeah, left side of things to do with the past, right side of things to do with the future. The fact that we're working with water, something about creativity still, but we're still working with more of an aquatic theme here, so there's still more that we're looking into here, right? We have 3 things so far to do with water, one of them being the element, water, but we also have a pearl, and we have a seagull flying by, so something to do with the ocean specifically. I'm hearing the source of life in the center of my head. So this is more of an evolutionary based consciousness belief, right? Whether or not this is true, who cares? We're talking about it from a standpoint of it being a belief system that exists within the collective. So let's talk about the theory that all life began as aquatic. Yeah, so something about emerging from the sea. I'm hearing about the myth of Poseidon in the center of my head as well. So there's a lot of myths of Poseidon, but the one that's specifically coming to mind is how I don't remember exactly what goddess was involved in this, but something about horses emerging from the ocean, out of being birthed out of sea foam, and that being the origin myth of how horses came into existence in Greek mythology. Buzzing, tingling sensation at the tip of my thumb here. Tip of the thumb is relevant. Tip of the thumb is relevant to do with an acupuncture point. Tip of the thumb is relevant to do with an organ, a gland, an element. So thumb, the element of ether associated with the thumb. Ether being made up of plasma. Something about plasma being relevant. Plasma is another semi-fluid-like substance. There's an aching and sort of nauseous sensation that I'm feeling into my left trap on this side. Trapezius muscle specifically. Typically this has to do with the brain. There's something about the brain. Tilting line popping up that I feel in my gut. It's more like a semicircular shape. I feel it beginning in my gut on the right side, and it moves up like a C up and into about here. And as I place my hand here, there's a ringing again in the left ear. Something relevant about the shape, something more that I need to know about the ringing. No, but something relevant about the shape and something relevant about here. Another ringing in the ear as soon as I press there. Something here. Every time I press here, there's more ringing in that ear. Let's talk about the shape, something about emotions, something to do with the brain, right? Emotions that are paired with the brain, but there's something relevant about this point here. Let's see, more aching now in the right hand. I'm feeling it along my my ulna here. So ulna is relevant as well, so we're pairing things together. My funny bone, that's another word for your ulna. So let's work with not funny. Seems relevant here. So a deficiency within my sense of humor, which seems to be the emotional pattern that's affecting the brain. Difficulty with connecting with laughter. Having difficulty connecting with laughter, which is sort of like a source of creativity in general, but also creation of life, right? Through the sense of vitality, creation of a sense of vitality in the world. How can you bring more vitality to your own life and to the lives of the people around you who you care about? By bringing more laughter into the world is the easiest way to do that. So something about this, right? This is our connection point, but this is also related to water in another way. So let's talk about something more to do with water here. We had the creation myth coming up earlier. I keep thinking about horses still. So horses emerging from sea foam, something relevant about horses here. Let's talk about. So another tilting line. These are two tilting lines that are kind of overlapping with each other. It reminds me of when you have a new sprouting plant and it has those two leaves that come out of the top. I think that's called cotyledon, the first leaves that sprout out of a germinating seed. And it's coming from that same area, so that same area on the right side. One of them is landing here to do with difficulty with perceiving or being able to experience laughter, and then the other one is going down in the opposite direction, so they're kind of sprouting out in this way. This one loops down and it kind of curls in, and it curls into the area of my gut on my left side. Location is relevant. See, organ? No. Space? No. Muscle? No. Meridian? No. Do I know? Okay. So, fascia. Body. Okay, so not the body. That's helpful. So something in the energy around this area. So let's talk about dantian. So your lower dantian, that's also, I guess I could associate that with the emerging point of this area as well, that these two leaves are sprouting out of, but one of them is moving back into the dantian. So it's like something, two different things emerging from the lower dantian, which is your source of vitality Jing in traditional Chinese medicine, which is sort of like the starting point for life force. Some of it you're born with, some of it you can develop over time. It's what classically is thought of to lead into life force energy. So Jing is formed within your lower dantian. It moves up to the middle dantian in your chest to become Qi, your life force energy, and that moves up to your upper dantian to become Shen, which is more about spirituality and contemplation. There's something about the lower dantian, so something about Jing here in this sort of looping circuit where it exits out of the area of the dantian and then moves its way back in, is another emotional pattern. It's another tilting line, right? Interesting. I'm hearing diversion. So, interesting. Diversion meaning like distraction. No, diversion meaning something taking me off the beaten path. Aching sensation at the base of my skull on the left side, base of the skull having to do with the C1 vertebrae in this case. C1 vertebrae connecting to the hypothalamus in the brain, hypothalamus associated with emergency states, fight or flight states in the body. It's a key part of your limbic system within your brain. So something about this diversion is putting me into a fight or flight state. We're still working with the concept of laughter. We're still working with the concept of creation as well. So creativity as an aspect of the element of water. I don't care what you believe about the whatever you believe in terms of how life came to this planet is your business, baby. Hopping at the top of the neck. So there seems to be unwinding happening to do with the C1 vertebrae. So, okay, there's a little dial here. A little dial having to do with the fight or flight state. We're just going to turn that down. Now I'm seeing kind of a figure 8 motion between where the dantian is in your lower abdomen area, and it's looping around this area. So around the divergence that goes downward here, there's a figure 8 between that and my lower dantian moving, right? Figure 8 motion. Like so. So we're getting flow within this area where there was not flow before, and there was not flow before because something about this diversion caused us to go into a state of fight or flight having to do with the C1 vertebrae. And engagement of the limbic system because of something that we're seeing as a diversion. The first thing that's coming to mind is that this is not actually a diversion, but it's something that we're convinced is a diversion. Okay, so when I go off the beaten path, the phrase that came up earlier, when I go off the beaten path, usually that's frowned upon by most people. Most people who you will run into in your societal, cultural circles, regardless of what circle it is, they don't really want you to try new things. Especially today, people want you to do things the way that they've been done, which kind of prevents anyone from ever creating anything new if they want to go with the flow of, where society's already going and what the people around them want them to do. It's odd, it's very strange, but that seems to be a theme, at least that I've run into in my life, that is very common today. People don't want you to discover new things anymore. It's weird, but it seems to be true, or maybe there's always been pushback against that, I don't know. But people want you to follow and do things the way that they've always been done. They don't want you to do things in a new way. That's just the way that it is. And that prevents people from ever discovering new things, which is likely why there's a lot less discovery in the world these days than there was even 100 years ago. We're accelerating in terms of technology, that's true. But it's mostly technology that's developing the technology at this point. Like you think about like fantasy novels from the 20th century, from the 19th century. Super creative ideas, crazy creative ideas. now every fantasy novel, every science fiction novel that's written is kind of the same thing. So this seems to be the pattern that we're in. We're in a pattern of us moving into this new creative realm and finding new ideas that are meant to be found by us is something that is putting us into a fight or flight state because of a cultural representation. Because I'm worried that I'm going to be excommunicated if I go down this path of trying this new thing, even though there's really a big pull within my subconscious that's pulling me into that direction of trying this new thing. I know that there's something here, but I'm worried about being excommunicated, and if I get thrown out of the tribe, everything within my evolutionary history in my body, everything within my brain as it is developed as a social creature says I might die if I get thrown out of the tribe, and also I'm going to lose everyone and everything that was important to me if I do this, and it happens to get me excommunicated. So it makes sense. It makes sense, but are you going to let that stop you from following your bliss, from finding if maybe you're here to discover something new in the world? It's up to you. But I'd rather be true to the journey that God has me here for than confine myself to what society says is the right, normal, okay, socially acceptable thing to do. I think there's a lot more novelty in the world for us to be finding if we could just pop outside of our box of expectations. What could you find if you moved beyond your box of expectations? So that figure 8 comes to the center of my gut. It's all one point now. I still feel this looping around this side of my face. Nausea. I feel very still. There are not a lot of thoughts running through my mind. I don't know what to do. That's okay. Let's sit with that. So I'm hearing creative process in through the left ear. That's what the creative process is like. You spend a lot of time not knowing what to do. You might spend a lot of time in what people call boredom. But emerging from that state of sitting in silence and not knowing what to do, eventually you come to a point where that feeling does what all emotions do. It comes to a peak, and then it ends. And on the other side of not knowing what to do is knowing what to do. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Wonderful. Is there anything more that we need to know today? I hope that that was beneficial for you. It seems as though these trapped emotions are no longer within our energy. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye.